It seems like every time that I turn away, your eyes let down on me when I look astray.
Hey guys, going to give a little demonstration of the inline fabrication case ejector system for the Lee Classic turret press and show you a little modification that I made to give me a little bit more flexibility. So if you look at the standard setup that comes from Inline Fabrication, you get a rotation rod along with a little, I call it the little flipper here. It's a single flipper. So as you turn or pull the crank on the turret press, this little knob spins around, and when it gets to the fourth pull, it ejects the case. You guys have probably all seen this before. It's on YouTube, pretty standard thing. One thing they've done with this rod actually is that it's twisted in the opposite direction from the standard Lee rod. So the Lee rod that comes with it turns the turret in a counterclockwise direction. The system from Inline Fabrication, due to the way it's designed, needs to spin in the opposite direction, so it actually turns in a clockwise orientation. One of the things I've done though as a modification is I ordered another rod, and I actually ground off the top. I'll explain that in a second here. And I made a 4-position flipper, I call it. And it's kind of hard probably to see on the video, but these are not really at 12, 3, 6, and 9. They're a little bit offset, and I had to do that because as you raise the ram to the top, these little flippers would get caught between the actual case and the top of the one of the dies. So it took a couple trial and error maneuvers to get this set up right. And you also notice they kind of curve. I used some tubing, some automotive vacuum tubing, and actually curved them away as it's going in the clockwise direction. So I used that little curve to my advantage as well. The rod that I chose, as I mentioned, I modified it. I actually ground off the top of the bolt. I don't know if you can see that on the video, compared to the standard one that's square, has the square edges. The reason I did that, so that the turret will not turn with this, because the way I'm going to use this with the 4-flipper design is to do a single operation. So for example, decapping a bunch of dirty brass before I wash it or do a wet tumble. So this allows me to eject a case every pull of the crank, whereas the standard one only ejects the case every 4th pull of the crank. So what I'm going to be using with this setup is just a single die. I don't want that turret to turn to change positions on the turret. I'm using a single die, so that's why this had to be ground off. It needed to remain there, however, to keep it in place so that this continues to turn. Without that, at least orientation that fits up into the bottom of the turret, it wouldn't rotate correctly. So I did need to keep something. I just needed to remove the square edges. So that's that modification. So quickly, I'll make a couple of rounds with a standard design. And I'm sure, as I mentioned, you guys have seen this already probably a million times. But let's go through just a couple of cartridges quickly. So I'll put the turret on, set up to my 9mm round. You notice when I put the turret on, this is my sizing die, I have the flipper in the first position basically, so as it rotates it will eject properly. So here's some clean brass. Let me put my primer safety prime on, and we'll go ahead and start. So I'm just going to make a few rounds of 9mm. These are already cleaned and decapped. So place it in, and let's go ahead and start the process. So resize, add the primer, and drop some powder. Seat, crimp, and then it ejects it. So we'll go to another one now. And you can get going pretty quickly when you get the motion on this. So it just adds a level of automation to the standard Lee Classic turret press that wasn't there before. Well, of course now I'm on camera and I can't get this to work. Normally this isn't an issue. I'm really working on minimizing my flare. So it's a little difficult to hold the bullet in. Sorry, I'm really making a mess of this, but when I get rolling it goes pretty quickly. I think you've probably seen other videos on this before on YouTube, so I won't go very far into this. Do maybe one more after this. But again, I think you guys have probably seen a video or two showing the system in operation. But now what I want to do is I want to show you the other design, the one with the 4 flippers. So, let me take these off. Now I'm going to do an operation where I'm just going to decap or deprime some dirty brass. So this brass is just range pickup brass. I really don't want to run that through my standard sizing decapping die. So I'm just going to use a Lee depriming or decapping die that just has that single function. And the way it's designed, it doesn't really, you can run dirty brass through it, and it really doesn't get very dirty. So it won't affect the die, I should say. So this time I'm going to use my 4-fingered flipper. So again, I'll put the rod in without the top. This is where I ground the top off. And you'll kind of see why in a second why that makes a difference. So now as I put this turret on with the single die, so once I get into position here, you see that as this flips, this turns every time to eject a case, but it doesn't turn the turret at the top, which is what I want, because I'm just going to do a repeated operation of a single function, in this case just decapping a bunch of dirty brass. So let's get started. So I just take a case, decap, I didn't eject very well, but eject, decap, eject, and I can sit here and do this very quickly. Go through a lot of brass in a short amount of time. So if I just want to decap and get ready for a wet priming, or sorry, a wet tumbling gas cleaning operation, this makes it very easy. And I prefer to deprime before I do the wet tumbling, just because the primer pocket's clean. There's a lot of argument about whether that's really a necessary step. I like to have the clean primer pockets, so for me, it's a no-brainer. You know, it does take time, an extra step here to go through and deprime these, and I get that, but at least with this 4-fingered flipper, it makes it a lot easier. And really, if I'm not talking on camera, I can go much quicker when I'm paying more attention to what I'm doing. But I can whip through, you know, 1,000 rounds of brass or more in just a really short time, 10 or 15 minutes or so. And I've got a full batch ready for wet tumbling. So that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope this makes sense, and maybe others of you can take advantage of this 4-flipper design. Thanks.